Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So you want to become, and I'm your host Krishna Ranganathan. Today we have with us Ishwar Achanta, a leader whose impact spans from shipping policies and global sports governance. From running ports to refereeing at St. Andrews, from drafting policies for India's maritime future to simplifying rules at golf, Ishwar Achanta's story is about discipline, fairness, and purpose. This episode dives into his lessons, which has been crafted with precision. Ishwar Chanta brings us two powerful lenses. One from the global logistics and the other one from elite golf administration. So he's also one of the few private sector professionals who has helped draft the Maritime India Vision 2030, India's 10-year strategy for ports and shipping. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's an honor to have you here. And yeah, let's begin. So take us back in time. How did your journey begin? Like, was it always at the bridge of a ship or inside a tea box of the port?
My dad was in the Merchant Navy. Uh, he went out to sea in 1942. His brothers before him. So growing up, my home, the dining table was always replete with these stories, these adventures. My uncle his ship was sunk by the Japanese off the coast of India in the war. So he would tell us stories about being, in the water, waiting for rescue, all of that. And my sister then married a merchant mariner. So it was all about me wanting to go to sea. There was nothing else in my mind. I didn't want the standard cliched route of a doctor or an engineer or a chartered accountant. So it was always something that I wanted to do. Golf was something I started in 1974 at a very young age. And again, there was no thoughts of, because nobody knew anything then. Golf in India was very nascent. Nobody had a clue about what was the game. I remember in 1980 asking my father, I wanted to be a professional golfer. And he laughed at me. He said, what will you earn? You'll earn 3,000 rupees. And today, the top highest paid golfer earns in excess of $100 million. So, okay, that was then and this is now. But it was always about being a merchant mariner.
So how did you get to the rules side of golf?
So this story began sometime in the late 90s. I was playing golf in the Kodaikanal Golf Club. And, there's a tradition in golf. You finish 18 holes of golf, you repair to the clubhouse, you hang out the bar. It's called the 19th hole. And at this 19th hole, you discuss whatever happened during the game. You get into arguments over rules, situations, incidents that happen. So when somebody asked me for my opinion, I gave them an opinion on that ruling. And it turned out to be correct, but somebody else who was a teacher in the school there challenged me and said, what do you know of the rules? So that set me thinking. And it was a valid question because in an argument, a reasoned argument always wins, never loud voices, never being overbearing. So I decided to check and see what I could do to become a rules expert. And then I found out that the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews, which is the home of golf in Scotland, has this examination system where the national body of your country will nominate you. You go there, you write the exam, you qualify, and then you become a qualified referee. So it took me 3 years to go through this system, this bureaucratic system that India has or had, maybe even has. And it was in 2002 that I was able to write the exam in Scotland and qualify.
So I had read an article about you, not about you, about golf. And you had given your input saying simplifying the rules of golf is essential. Have you seen the impact that the current gen golfers are experiencing through the simplification of the rules?
So this question requires a slightly detailed answer. So there is a body called the Rules of Golf Committee within the R&A, Royal and Ancient. And this body is charged with writing the rules of golf. Now in 1744, the first set of rules were written. There were 13 rules, very simple rules. But as the game progressed and as more and more people began to play, and don't forget, we play golf in absolute nature. And nature is not something that you could define in one sentence. It's very complex. So the rules began to expand, and from 13 rules, it became 34 rules, with over 2,000 interpretations on these rules. They're called decisions. Today, they're called interpretations. So because they were so complex, the governing bodies began to get worried because youngsters like you were being turned away from the game, thinking that the rules were very complicated. So by 2010, I have been nominated to this Rules of Golf Committee to represent 42 countries of the Asia Pacific. I was what's called an APGC representative. And my role with 12 others, 11 others, were to work with the R&D through the year. We would meet 4 to 5 times a year in St. Andrews, and we would review every single rule in the book. And we would get thousands of questions from around the world. And we would look at that mail or the letter and find out what caused the confusion, why the answer was not there in the rule book, and why a clarification had to be issued. And in 2010, we decided that the rules needed to have a complete change. So the simplification process began in 2010. And by the time I left the committee in 2017, the rules had been brought down to 24. And the simplification of the rules began to take, a very earnest shape. So yes, I have seen in the last 10 years, the last 8 years, that the people who were confounded by the rules are now beginning to understand them in a much easier manner. They're able to grasp what they thought were idiotic rules. They were able to understand the logic behind it and get to embrace it and accept it. And yes, we've seen a large number of youngsters like you, in the 14 to 18, 19 age group, who decided that the game of golf was not as complex as it was in the past, and they were happy to come in and take up the game and learn the game and play the game.
So, was there a moment or someone at PS who nudged you towards leadership, systems thinking, or for a love of precision?
I came into the school by sheer accident in 81. I just spent 2 years of my life here. I was in another school earlier. So without being uncharitable to the PS system, I did learn a lot here for the time that I attended the school. Leadership was something that came to me naturally over the years. And the defining moment in understanding what leadership meant was when another student misbehaved with me, and I took the law into my own hands. And which is something that you don't do as a leader. You don't, take immediate, punitive action. There's a system that you go through. And the principal then took away all my leadership roles. And I then understood that the quality of leadership means a lot more than just wearing a badge on the pocket and then strutting around like a peacock and thinking that the world is at your feet. That was a very defining moment. That was in 1978. And those lessons have stood by me right through my life. It's been over 55 years. And I've never regretted that learning. I've been very grateful for that learning. In this school, there was this time, I think it was 1982, when Mr. P.C. Shekhar's friend was the captain of a ship called the Chidambaram. The Chidambaram was a passenger ship owned by the Shipping Corporation of India that would run between Singapore and Madras. And it was called Madras then. And Mr. Shekhar brought this captain, I can't remember his name. He brought him to the school, resplendent in his white uniform, with his peak cap. And as I told you earlier, for me, my life is all about hating the merchant navy. And when I saw this guy there, standing tall in his white uniform, there was no doubts in my mind that that's where I wanted to be. So I remember that incident very clearly. It was an assembly outside on the ground there. And it was a good moment.
So, how did your journey into the maritime and logistics world begin? So, how did you first get into the shipping industry? As you already mentioned that you want to get into the merchant navy.
Yeah. So when I went out to sea, that year that I wanted to join the merchant navy, the government changed the entrance exam from a direct entrance exam to the traineeship called Rajendra, and they clubbed it with the IIT exam. And as you know, when we were younger, we had friends who from the class 8 started preparing for IIT. And we were guys who couldn't care less. So all of us started to be told in 1 month to go write the IIT exam. It was impossible. So I joined the ship as a direct entry cadet, and I went to sea. And unfortunately for me, the 80s was a terrible recession. Shipping goes through a cyclical recession. And the 80s was as the lowest ebb of the recession. So struggling to find ships, struggling to sail, struggling to find employment. So in 87, I decided to come ashore, and I joined a shipping company. Fortunately, my father's friend owned that company, and he was kind enough to give me a job. Excuse me. And thus launched my career in shipping and ports. And inside 10 years, by 97, I was fortunate enough to start my own company. And that company did very well in different sectors of ports and logistics. In 2009, I was able to launch yet another company that was involved in designing and building ports and terminals. So it's been a great journey, including time spent at sea is over 40 years. But otherwise, it's 38 years of working the system, working in ports, working with logisticians, working with government. I was on the boards of two government ports, the Visakhapatnam port and Chennai port, nominated by the Ministry of Shipping. In 2020, I was appointed to the National Shipping Board, which is again a policy body, making body for India. Yeah, journey's been good. No regrets at all.
So you were one of the few professionals from the private sector who has helped or who has been a part of policy making for Maritime India Vision 2030. How, how did you start with that? How was it like? How was your journey? What was your role?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, experience counts. Contrary to what people think, that it's just not qualifications. It's always experience that counts. So when I was in my 30s, I was appointed to the board of Visakhapatnam Port, which was again, it's an advisory job, right? You advise the chairman of the port how he needs to run his port. And that went on for 10 years. I was appointed to the board of Chennai after that. So a lot of experience and knowledge came with administering large ports like this, advising the chairman, working with the heads of department, creating policy for the ports. So in 2020, when COVID hit, the government of India constituted a committee to study how businesses that were exiting China could be brought into India. So the Ministry of Shipping then put together a bunch of experts like me, and we came out with a 40-point document that told the government what our ports need to do to bring these industries in a seamless manner into our country. As you know, red tapeism is rampant in our country. Even today, even with Mr. Modi at the helm, it's still very rampant. The bureaucratic system will take another 50 years to change, but we still have to work with it. I mean, that's something we have no choice. So we put out this 40-point document, which was highly appreciated by the PMO and by the ministry, is what I'm told. They didn't tell me directly, but I was told this. And subsequent to that, the tenure of the National Shipping Board then was ending. So the ministry found it fit to appoint me to the National Shipping Board, along with 18 others. And there are also 6 parliamentarians, because this is an act of parliament, the National Shipping Board. 6 parliamentarians and 19 others would sit on the National Shipping Board. At the same time, the government had launched its Maritime Port Vision 2030 document. It's called the Amrit Kal now. I think it became the 2047 document, but it's the Amrit Kal vision, which I'm sure all of you know and read about. So I was then sent by the National Shipping Board. So the government split it into about 12 verticals to write the document. It was led by Boston Consulting to put this document together. So I was sent by the National Shipping Board into 4 of these verticals to work on 4 different sectors that included ports, traffic, sustainability, and all of that. So that's how I got into into policy making. And I am actually happy to say that a lot of my inputs were considered by the groups, by BCG, and a lot of my inputs actually ended up being in the NPV 2030. I'm pretty happy that government listens to experts like us.
From one rule book to another, let's talk about your other life, golf. Sir, you are one of the few Indians who had officiated an international golf tournament. So, yeah, what exactly in your younger age drew to the game?
So actually, I was the first Indian. Oh, I have a first.
Okay.
I was the first Indian to officiate at an international professional event outside of India. And that was at the Australian Open in 2002, the year I qualified as a referee. And the Australian Open is the world's second oldest golf tournament. It comes after the British Open, the Open Championship. And I refereed several Australian Opens after that for many years. Even today, I have a standing invitation from Golf Australia to come to Australia to officiate there, but I don't do that anymore. Of course, after me, so we'll get to that. So I was the first Indian again in 2005 to officiate at the Open Championship, which is the world's oldest and most prestigious. And I was the first Indian to officiate at the US Open after that. So I've officiated a large number of tournaments. I did the Asian Games. I was the technical delegate for golf at the Asian Games in Busan. I was the technical delegate for golf at the SAF Games, the SARC Games. I mean, all of that. I had this phenomenal opportunity to do that. Now, the Indian system is called the Great Crab Mentality.
Okay? The Great
Crab Mentality. So, you know what the crab mentality is? You put crabs in a bucket. So the crab that's trying to get out, you have other crabs trying to pull it down. So that's how the Indian system goes. So the trauma that I went through to get to be nominated to write the exam in 2002, don't want to talk about it now, but suffice to say that it was extremely traumatic. I swore to myself that when I got a chance to lead Indian golf, lead the golf administration, I would never allow a fellow Indian to go through what I did. So in 2008, I was elected to the Indian Golf Union, which is the apex body for golf. It's like the BCCI of cricket. Your viewers would understand what BCCI is. And that's the IGU was the BCCI of cricket. So in 2008, I got elected to the body. In 2010, I went to St. Andrews just before I got nominated to the Rules of Golf Committee. And I signed up a 3-tier rules education program with the R&A. So we were the first country in this entire planet to have this 3-tier rules education program signed up. Ahead of us was China, but that was in the Chinese language. It was not in English. So the 3 tiers is a level 1, which is a 1-day program. People with a marginal interest in rules can do it. Half a day classroom, half a day practical, exam at the end of it. If you did well at the exam, you would be invited to a level 2, which is a 2.5-day program. Okay, and then if you pass that, again, it was a very grueling process. If you pass that exam, you would then be certified as an A category referee. And then the best 2 would be selected by us and sent to St. Andrews for the level 3, which is what I went to, which I had to go through a very difficult process. I'm happy to say that since then, 34 Indians have been qualified with a level 3, entirely due to this process that I had the privilege of setting up.
Let's get to the rapid fire round. So I'll ask like 5 questions and then, yeah. So what's your favorite golf hole in the world?
The 15th tee box in the Kodaikanal Golf Club, because that's where I feel closest to God.
Most underrated port in India?
Visakhapatnam.
One rule people misunderstand in both golf and in shipping?
In golf, it would be what's called dropping the ball from knee height. It used to be earlier from shoulder height, but it's now from knee height. So people find it difficult to get around that. In ports and shipping, what they don't understand is why there needs to be so much bureaucratic control over our waters and our air.
One rule that can be applied in both your phases. One rule that can be applied in both golf and shipping.
There's a rule called equity. Okay, it's actually an unwritten rule. When the rules of golf don't cover it, then equity covers it. I would personally like to see equity as a rule described in the book, because it's one of the fairest things that man can do. When you're standing in judgment over somebody else, you must apply equity to life and everything else.
Green shipping or Olympic golf, which is more exciting in the front view?
Green shipping.
So we're coming to the end of the episode, sir. Students are now more into the AI. They hear a lot about AI and tech, but they never think about, like, for example, stevedoring or merchant navy or any of this as a career. So what would you tell a class 12 student, a current in class 10 student, to like who's curious, what do you tell them about this?
So again, AI being new and I being from an old school, uh, I still had to get my head around it to embrace AI. And I can tell you that as a consultant, I consult in ports and shipping and sustainability and inclusivity. These are my, and golf. These are the 5 areas that I work with. There is no doubt in my mind that AI will eventually, if not replace completely, will be a tool that practitioners of ports and shipping cannot ignore. We are still at a very nascent stage in this industry. For example, blockchain was a highly spoken technology. It failed for us. Okay, it failed for shipping, even though a global giant like Maersk Line tried it in their bill of lading process. So AI, again, today we have identified 6 areas which AI can contribute in. I personally am involved in trying to understand how and where this can be accelerated and also made useful without making the human resource redundant. See, for example, I read yesterday, I think Amazon or somebody said that AI is going to replace a large workforce. I don't believe that's going to be true for ports and shipping. I believe that AI will be an absolute value-added tool to individuals who will have to become specialists. They can no more be generalists, right? They'll have to embrace the actual knowledge of what that vertical requires and then use AI as a tool to enhance a product offering or a service offering or even, management of that system.
As we celebrate 50 years of excellence at PS Senior Secondary School, what's one message that you'd like to leave for the alumni and the future generation?
I don't know about alumni because there are any number of great achievers in life who have come out of the portals of this school. But for the kids who are, for the young adults who are graduating, my message is, is nothing is impossible. You can achieve anything that you want in life. You don't need to be a Harvard graduate or an IIT Madras graduate, both of which I am not. Okay, all you need is a surfeit of knowledge, integrity. There can be no measures of honesty. You can't choose to be half honest or half dishonest. And effort. Without these 3, you will flounder. But with these 3 attributes, I can tell you, youngsters, and those of you watching this, the sky's the limit.
The sky is indeed the limit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me over. And I do hope your audience enjoys this little tete-a-tete that we had.